The underestimated species. Captain Elena Marsh stepped through the airlock and into a world that defied imagination. The Galactic Assembly Station stretched before her like a city suspended in the void of space. Crystalline towers reached upward into darkness, connected by bridges of pure light. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at ports that spiraled around the station's massive central sphere. Elena had seen the images during her briefing, but nothing prepared her for the reality of standing here, the first human to set foot in the seat of galactic power. Behind her, 4 others emerged from the human transport vessel. Commander Ryan Chen moved with the quiet confidence of a man who had spent 20 years in special operations. Dr. Sarah Kim carried a data tablet containing humanity's entire scientific achievement condensed into formats the Council could review. Ambassador James Wright adjusted his formal suit, trying to hide his nervousness. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez scanned their surroundings with sharp eyes, her hand never far from the ceremonial sidearm at her hip. "Stay calm," Elena whispered to her team. "Remember, we're here to observe and learn. They've agreed to meet us, which means they're at least curious about humanity." A figure approached them, floating rather than walking. It resembled a jellyfish made of silver light with dozens of trailing tendrils that pulsed with bioluminescence. A device near Elena's ear translated its melodic sounds into English. "Welcome, humans. I am Guide Shinmora. Please follow. The Council awaits your presentation." They walked through corridors that seemed to shift and change around them. Other beings passed by, each one stranger than the last. Some had multiple limbs, others had no limbs at all. Some communicated through color changes on their skin, others through sounds that made Elena's teeth ache. All of them stopped to stare at the human delegation. Elena heard whispers in languages she couldn't understand, but the tone was clear enough. Curiosity mixed with something else, amusement perhaps, or pity. The council chamber opened before them like the mouth of some vast creature. The room was spherical, with seating arranged in concentric rings that rose upward in all directions. At the center floated a platform, and it was toward this platform that Shinmora guided them. As they walked, Elena counted the beings assembled here. Thousands. Representatives from species across known space, all gathered to witness humanity's first formal contact with galactic civilization. 5 figures occupied the highest tier of seating, positioned so they looked down upon everyone else. These were the Council itself, the ruling body that had maintained order across the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed. Supreme Arbitrator Kaltesh spoke first. He was massive, easily 4 meters tall, with skin that looked like polished stone and eyes that glowed with inner fire. His voice boomed through the chamber without need for translation devices. "Humans of Earth, you stand before the Galactic Council. We have reviewed your petition for contact. We have studied your world, your history, your brief existence as a spacefaring species." Elena bowed respectfully. "Supreme Arbitrator, honored council members, humanity is grateful for this audience. We come seeking knowledge and friendship. We wish to learn from the wisdom of older civilizations and perhaps in time contribute our own perspectives to the galactic community." A sound rippled through the chamber. It took Elena a moment to recognize it as laughter. Not from everyone, but from enough beings that the meaning was unmistakable. They found something funny about her words. Another council member leaned forward. This one resembled a mantis constructed from living metal, with compound eyes that reflected the chamber's lights in kaleidoscope patterns. "Contribute." The being's translated voice dripped with condescension. What could a species that achieved faster-than-light travel merely 4 years ago possibly contribute to civilizations that have sailed the stars for millennia? Technology arbitrator Zixathon raises a valid point. added another council member, a serpentine creature whose body coiled around its seat like living rope. Your species is classified as Tier 9 in development. This places you among the most primitive spacefaring civilizations ever encountered. You have no advanced weapons, no shields worth mentioning, no colonies beyond your own solar system. You are children playing with toys you barely understand. Commander Chen shifted beside Elena, and she could feel his anger building. She touched his arm gently, a signal to remain calm. "We may be young," Elena said carefully, "but youth brings fresh perspectives. We've achieved much in our short history. We've overcome division to unite our world. You've fought over 16,000 wars in your recorded history. Your planet has been devastated by conflicts over resources, beliefs, and territory. You nearly destroyed yourselves with nuclear weapons before you even reached your own moon. Why should we trust a species that cannot even maintain peace among its own kind? We learned from our mistakes. We grew. That's what young species do. We adapt and evolve." "Adapt and evolve," repeated the fourth council member, a cloud of luminous gas contained within a force field sphere. "Pretty words, but the galaxy is not a forgiving place for the weak and slow. There are predators out here that would consume your entire species before you could send a distress signal." The fifth council member finally spoke. This being appeared almost human at first glance, but its skin was too smooth, too perfect, and its movements had an unsettling fluidity. "I am diplomatic arbitrator Velkanos. I have reviewed your combat records, your military capabilities, your physical specifications. Humans are fragile. Your bodies break easily. You require specific atmospheric conditions. You have a reaction time of approximately 0.85 seconds according to galactic standard measurements. You are, by every measurable metric, inferior to the species already represented in this council." Elena felt heat rising in her face, but she maintained her composure. "With respect, arbitrator, reaction time isn't... We are not here to debate physiology," Kultesh said, waving one massive hand dismissively. "We are here to determine humanity's place in the galactic order, and that place is clear. You will be granted protectorate status." "Protectorate status?" Elena asked. Though she knew from her briefing what this meant, she wanted to hear them say it. "You will be protected in exchange for tribute. 30% of all resources extracted from your system, access to your computer networks for monitoring purposes, detailed reports of all technological developments, restriction of your vessels to your home system and designated trade routes. In return, the Council will ensure no hostile species threatens your world." "That's not protection," Commander Chen said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "That's occupation." The chamber erupted in sounds that might have been laughter, hisses, or expressions of shock at the human's audacity. Kultesh raised his hand and silence fell instantly. "You misunderstand your position, human warrior. This is not a negotiation. This is an offer of mercy. Without council protection, your species would be easy prey for the thousands of aggressive civilizations that prowl the galaxy. Pirates would raid your world for slaves. The Korthax swarm would consume your biosphere. The Endless Collective would assimilate your entire species into its hive mind. You need us." "And if we refuse?" Elena asked quietly. Velcano smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Then you face the galaxy alone, unprotected, vulnerable. How long do you think your primitive defenses would last?" Elena looked at the 5 council members, then at the thousands of beings watching from the rings above. She thought about Earth, about the 4 billion humans who had placed their trust in this delegation. She thought about the careful analysis her team had done during the journey here, watching the holographic records of galactic conflicts, studying the movements of alien warriors and soldiers. "May I request a demonstration?" Elena asked. "You say we're inferior in every way. I'd like to understand exactly what we're facing out here." Kultesh seemed pleased by this. "A reasonable request.
Knowledge should precede acceptance of one's limitations. Volcanos, arrange a display. The diplomatic arbitrator touched a control surface and the chamber's center transformed. Holographic projections filled the space, showing a battle between two fleets. Alana watched carefully. The ships moved with grace and purpose, firing weapons that tore through armor and shields, but something struck her immediately. Everything was slow. Not slow by human standards of space combat, but slow in how the crews responded. When a threat appeared, several seconds passed before ships adjusted their positions. When an opportunity emerged, it took long moments before weapons fired. This is the Battle of Kreshnal, the Vexnari Dominion against the Thorian Collective. The Vexnari won decisively, as they always do. They are the Council's military arm, the finest warriors in known space. They have never...
The trial that changed everything. The Grand Arena occupied an entire section of the Galactic Assembly Station, a massive spherical chamber capable of holding 500,000 spectators. By the time Captain Elena Marsh and her team arrived, every seat was filled. Beings from across the galaxy had come to witness what most considered a spectacle, a final humiliation before humanity accepted its place as a lesser species under Council protection. Elena stood in the preparation chamber with Commander Ryan Chen and the 4 soldiers he had selected. Sergeant Marcus Webb had served in 3 different Special Forces units before joining the Diplomatic Security Detail. Corporal Yuki Tanaka held the record for fastest combat response time in her entire battalion. Private First Class David Okonkwo was a championship martial artist who had transitioned to military service. Lance Corporal Sophia Reyes had survived situations that would have killed anyone with slower reflexes. "Remember the plan," Chen said quietly, checking each soldier's equipment. "They'll expect us to take defensive positions, to wait and react. Instead, we attack immediately, fast, hard, and without hesitation. Don't give them time to process what's happening." The weapons they had been given were standard Council issue, designed for non-lethal combat trials. Energy batons that delivered stunning charges, concussion grenades that disoriented without causing permanent harm, and light armor that changed color to indicate when a hit had been scored. 3 color changes meant elimination from the trial. "How do you want us to approach this, Commander?" Webb asked, his weathered face calm despite the circumstances. "Like every threat we've ever faced on Earth," Chen replied. "Swift and overwhelming. These Vexnari have never fought anyone who moves at our speed. Use that. By the time they understand what's happening, it needs to be over." A tone sounded, and the door to the arena floor began to open. The roar of 500,000 voices washed over them like a physical force. Elena walked beside Chen as they emerged into the light. The arena floor was enormous, easily the size of several football fields. Obstacles had been arranged throughout the space, barriers, platforms, cover positions. The lighting was bright, ensuring every moment would be clearly visible to the assembled crowd. Holographic displays floated above the arena, showing different angles and magnified views of the combatants. On the opposite side of the arena, the Vexnari warriors entered. Elena had seen them in recordings, but the reality was far more imposing. Each one stood nearly 3 meters tall, their bodies covered in natural armor plating that resembled interlocking scales. Their 4 arms ended in hands that could easily crush a human skull. Their eyes glowed with a faint red light, and when they moved, it was with the confidence of beings who had never known defeat. 20 of them formed precise ranks, their movements synchronized like a military parade. Their commander, a massive Vexnari whose armor bore marks of countless battles, raised one arm in salute to the crowd. The arena erupted in cheers. Supreme Arbiter Kaltesh's voice boomed across the space. "Beings of the Galactic Council, you are here to witness a combat trial. 5 human soldiers will face 20 Vexnari elite warriors. The trial will continue until one side has been completely eliminated or surrenders. Let all present bear witness to this demonstration." Ilana caught the word demonstration and its implication. This wasn't meant to be a fair fight. This was meant to be a lesson, a public showing of humanity's inadequacy. Volcanos appeared on the holographic displays, his perfect features arranged in an expression of sympathy.
Humans, you may still withdraw from this trial. There is no shame in recognizing the vast difference between your capabilities and those of the galaxy's finest warriors. We offer you one final opportunity to accept Protectorate status with dignity. Commander Chen stepped forward. His voice was quiet, but carried clearly through the arena's audio systems. We respectfully decline. We're ready to begin. A ripple of sound moved through the crowd. Surprise, amusement, and anticipation mixed together. The Vexnari commander made a gesture that might have been their equivalent of a shrug, as if to say the humans had been warned. Then let the trial begin, Kaltesh declared. Warriors, take your positions. The Vexnari moved to their starting positions with ceremonial precision. Each step was measured, each movement part of a ritual that had been performed for thousands of years. They formed a standard battle array: front line of heavy fighters, second line of support, rear guard for tactical coordination. It was textbook military doctrine, refined over millennia of warfare. The 5 humans simply stood in a loose formation, looking almost casual by comparison. Elena saw confusion ripple through the crowd. Why weren't the humans preparing defensive positions? Why weren't they distributing their forces to maximize coverage? A countdown began, displayed on every holographic screen. 10 seconds, 9, 8, 7. Chen spoke softly to his team, words that only they could hear through their communication devices. First 3 seconds, close the distance. Next 2 seconds, primary targets. Final 3 seconds, cleanup. 8 seconds total. Make every movement count. 7, 6, 5. The Vexnari lowered into combat stances, their multiple arms moving with smooth coordination. To the galactic observers, they looked like the embodiment of martial perfection. Powerful, precise, unstoppable. 4, 3, 2. Elena held her breath. Everything they had worked for, everything humanity hoped to achieve among the stars, came down to the next few seconds. 1. Begin. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists across the galaxy for years to come. Multiple camera angles captured every moment. Slow-motion replays would be studied in tactical academies. But in real time, to those watching in the arena, it appeared less like combat and more like magic. The humans moved. They didn't run. They exploded into motion with a speed that defied the expectations of every being present. Chen led the charge, closing a distance of 30 meters in just over 2 seconds. The Vexnari front line was still processing the start signal, still beginning to raise their weapons when the humans crashed into them like a storm. Webb reached the first Vexnari warrior and didn't slow down. He slid beneath the alien's defensive strike, a blow that hadn't even completed its arc, and delivered 3 stunning strikes to pressure points that Dr. Kim had identified in the Vexnari anatomy. The warrior's armor registered 3 hits. Eliminated. Time elapsed 2.4 seconds. Tanaka moved like liquid, flowing around obstacles that would have slowed anyone else. She reached the second line of Vexnari warriors before they had fully registered that combat had begun. Her energy baton struck with surgical precision. Shoulder joint, knee joint, nerve cluster. 3 warriors down in a blur of motion. Time elapsed 3.1 seconds. Okonkwo used his martial arts training to devastating effect. He didn't fight the Vexnari strength, he redirected it, using their own mass and momentum against them. A warrior tried to grab him, moving with what for Vexnari was impressive speed. But to Okonkwo, the grab was so slow he had time to consider 3 different counters before selecting one. He ducked, twisted, and sent the warrior crashing into 2 of its companions. All 3 registered multiple hits as they fell. Time elapsed 4.7 seconds. Reyes had the most difficult task. She was targeting the Vexnari commander, who stood at the rear and was presumably their fastest warrior. She closed the distance while he was still issuing orders to his troops, words that would never be completed. She feinted left, moved right before he could react, and her strikes landed before his defensive arms had moved a quarter of the way to blocking position. The Vexnari armor lit up with hit indicators. Even the greatest Vexnari warrior had been too slow. Time elapsed 6.2 seconds. Commander Chen moved through the chaos like a ghost, finishing what his team had started. Warriors who were still trying to process their first tactical decision found themselves eliminated before completing the thought. The Vexnari weren't slow by their standards, they were reacting as fast as their biology allowed. But against humans, they might as well have been standing still. At 8.7 seconds, the last Vexnari warrior's armor registered its third hit. The trial was over. Silence filled the grand arena. 500,000 beings sat in absolute, stunned quiet. The holographic displays showed the final moment. 5 human soldiers standing in ready positions among 20 eliminated Vexnari warriors, none of whom had managed to land a single hit in return. Then the replays began. Slow-motion footage showed what really happened, breaking down each second into comprehensible pieces. The crowd watched as movements that had appeared instantaneous were revealed in detail. Even slowed down, the speed difference was staggering. For every action a Vexnari warrior completed, the humans completed 4 or 5 times. Supreme Arbiter Cal Tesh rose from his seat, his massive form rigid with shock. "Stop. Stop the replays." His voice carried uncertainty, something I suspect was rare for him. "This cannot be accurate. Run diagnostics on the recording systems. The humans must have used enhancement technology, combat drugs, or illegal modifications." "No enhancements detected," a technical officer reported, their voice shaking slightly. "All humans are operating within baseline biological parameters for their species. Supreme Arbiter, those are their natural capabilities." Dr. Sarah Kim stepped forward, her tablet already displaying